So I'm going to read another selection of poems, again some recent ones, some from my little book here. I mentioned Hebrew earlier, and I'm going to start with a couple of poems that refer to Jewish festivals. Rosh Hashanah is the Jewish New Year festival, and it's an autumn festival. And Shavuot, also known as the Feast of Weeks, is around this time of year actually. It's a sort of late spring festival. So the first poem is called Rosh Hashanah. This is the orchard time. Rows of tongued gods glut our ears with dull talk, promises, sweet drip, luxury. This is the time of consummations, feastings after sundown, a marriage shored against the barren months. By rivers we cast out our secrets, ask the forgiveness of water. This is the time of apples and honey, sharp truths sliced and dipped in glowing gold. We take and eat. 'Tis enough, enough. Shavuot. Under the cherry trees you sit, drifted in white, glassmaker's daughter. Not my place to dream of you with child, your fine spun bones singing like ice on ice. Waiting a touch upon the wrist you sit, drifted in white, a promise made between the flowering cherry and the Feast of Weeks. Moving slightly from Hebrew to Greek, this is a poem that I wrote after spending some time in Sefton Park in Liverpool watching heron. The reference to Pallas is Pallas Athene. It's a reference to the Iliad. She sent a heron as a sign to the Greeks who were trying to sort of creep up on the Trojans, set in the Trojan War. I just found this heron absolutely amazing. Heron. The slow beat of wings and your cry, harsh through the dark. Pallas' sign to the Greeks who crawled the plain in the night's third watch, spies from the ships. Your cry it was announced you, that same birth cry torn from your throat in Egypt as you rose, shining over the delta, world bringer, soul of the sun. Yet today in the rain you define silence, are instinct with it, watcher at the water's edge, compelling in stillness and telic utterly. No messenger, you bear no meaning. Our creed of augurs and annunciations remains ours alone. I probably should have also mentioned that the Egyptians saw the heron as a symbol of the beginning of the world. These are a couple of poems that I wrote about Wales or places in Wales. The first one started with a quotation from the poet Gerard Manley Hopkins in his diary. He wrote, before I had always taken the sunset and the sun as quite out of gauge with each other, but today I inscaped them together and made the sun the true eye and ace of the whole as it is. So he's obviously watching a sunset and thinking about the sun. And this poem is called Climbing the Hill at Sunset. We climbed past St. Ruthlads to Pen y Foel, the hill not bare though, but rich with small lives. Rabbits ran from your high child voices, while tiny wings creaked and beat around us. England lay blank beyond the slate hills, the whole world curving into the west, and the sun, true eye and ace, commanded all. And this is another poem that I wrote in Wales. Again, it kind of took off from an old Anglo-Saxon poem, which is called The Seafarer. And I started thinking about the kind of Anglo-Saxon poetry tended to be written in lines with 4 beats in a line, 4 stresses, but with a kind of break in the middle of each line. And I was kind of following that model with this poem. And it's about the experience that some people here have probably had, being in the sea, swimming in the sea, and you know the sea's cold in Wales, and it's that feeling of sort of exhilaration. It's called Sea's Gift. Sea's gift, thought stops, wave crushed, dragged, flung, salt stung, skin keens, gull's eye rakes swift, cold rocks, thin bones picked clean, waymark, hawk, fox, thought stops, thought stops. I've been writing poems recently that have been taking off from partly from dreams and partly kind of memories of being very young, and they've kind of brought out some interesting things for me. So I'm going to read a few poems that are sort of partly developed from dreams and partly referring back to my childhood. This first poem has a line in it. The line about the little sister is taken from the Song of Songs in the Bible. And the poem is called Water, Its Voicings. Night excavates, reopens old coursings. In the mouth of the culvert, language grew, green and forbidden, fingering the edges of thought. We have a little sister, she has no breasts, knuckling deep into brickwork, the secret places of walls. Persuasive, night pries through shut springs, sealed fountains. Complicit, you open your throat to water, its voicings. This is a poem again that kind of goes back to childhood. I think what I was thinking about with this poem is the sense you often have as a child. There are lots of conversations going on around you that you don't understand. Not necessarily literal conversations, but that kind of feeling. And it makes a reference to something that some people here may remember, I don't know. When I've read this poem recently, some people have been too young to remember the existence of what was called a party line telephone, where you'd share a line with perhaps the house next door. So sometimes you'd pick up the phone and you'd be able to hear the conversation going on, and you'd have to wait until they got off the phone, basically. Somebody might have had that, I don't know. And the poem is called Unadopted. When you lift the receiver, the story is already unfolding. Quiet, insistent crosstalk of a party line. Behind the lockups, June hangs heavy, deep sea green and sour on the tongue. Wires hum along the cutting. At the edge of the permissible, you finger spell the word unadopted. Radios talk of Rhodesia, and at night the fitful banging of the trap. I mentioned of Rhodesia, obviously it also dates me to child of the 70s. This poem also developed partly out of a dream and partly from experience of going to see the play 'Tis Pity She's a Whore in Liverpool, which is one of those extremely sort of violent sort of restoration tragedies, and so it's kind of connected to that, and there are a couple of lines from the play used within the poem. The play is set in Parma in Italy, and that's the sort of nominal, at least, setting for this poem. And it's called In a Richer Mine, which is part of the line from the play. By Parma, on the floodplain, the river in spate dragging ochre under dirty nails. Submerged a child, you resurface a doll, mechanical eyelids, face cold and streaked with slip. Thin cries from the attic, zinc disc in the spine. Within this room she is, whose eyes I caused to be put out, but kept alive. Mama, mama, in the village the Scouse priest relishes his chthonic words, smacking his chops as you, the 5 months child, awake and clutch under my heart, digging with half-formed fingers in a richer mine. I'm starting to think that my unconscious is a little bit strange. Quite dark things coming through. I'm going to finish with a couple of very short poems. This first poem was trying to explain the title. The poem is called Missile Child, and I was looking at the word mistletoe in the OED, and they have these little interesting quotations about uses of words, and I found this quotation, which is from a book about botany written in 1653. There you shall find an oak with mistletoe within, at the foot whereof there is a missile child, whereof many strange things are conceived. I wrote this poem, it's called Missile Child. The lady of the moon is in travail, her white face waxen as the missile fruit. The gravelled path gives way to broken angles, burials of water. Follow it. Creep into the hospice of the yew, its pale lying place. Curl up there. Wait. And the last poem is, I read a poem earlier that I'd written for my daughter when I was expecting her, and this is a poem that I wrote when I was expecting my first child, his birthday is the very end of August, beginning of September, and so I wrote this poem essentially in the dead of winter, thinking about the time when the child will be born. It's called Autumn Child. Autumn child, you would be born with the leaf fall, the catch in the air that tells the year's turn. Tonight, a rag of cloud blindfolding the face of the moon. Am I leaving you or moving to greet you?